It's Wednesday. It's time for the All Utah Hockey Podcast, and it's game day. I'm Petey along with Craig Morgan and our regular special guest. You're not a special guest anymore, Belle. Belle Fraser from the Salt Lake Tribune. Belle, thanks for taking time out of your busy game day to sit with us.
Thanks for having me.
Doesn't mean that you're not special, though, Belle.
No, she is, but at some point we got to just say, here's Belle again.
Petey,
I was in that kind of mood today.
Can you excuse me for a minute?
See, Belle?
All right, thanks.
Yeah, people need to understand.
Game day coffee.
Put in a
Belle, you don't
cup.
shop at gas stations for your coffee, do you?
Target, close.
But he presses his own. Like they have a press, a coffee press. I literally don't know what a coffee press does, and that's not a joke. I don't know because I don't drink pressed coffee. That's true. It's game day. It's game day, Belle. It's game day, Belle. But no morning skate today. Optional morning skate today, so you didn't get to have your regular conversations. But with a big game tonight against Carolina, one of the best teams in the National Hockey League, and they're good in every category. And we talked about the last game that this Utah team is struggling. We talked about possibly juggling the lines. Is there anything you're hearing about tonight's lines and D pairs?
Yeah, so the team luckily had 3 days between Nashville and tonight. So they had one off day once they got back from Utah after the trip, and then 2 full practice days. And we talked to Coach this morning, and he said the lines and pairs they practiced with on Monday and Tuesday will be what they roll tonight. So some of the major changes we saw is Nick Bukestad is up on the first line now between Keller and Schmaltz. And both he and Coach talked about just bringing size to that line. Bukestad said he's really going to pride himself on winning battles in the corner and kind of creating space for Keller and Schmaltz. He says you're kind of aware and you recognize when you're playing with talent like that. So he's not kind of looking to possess the puck as much as maybe he did on the third line. And, he's looking for Schmaltz to get his first goal of the season. I think having someone with a bigger build at center might help. I think they're doing anything they can to get Nick Schmaltz going. He has, I think, second most points with 12 points, but they're all assists. And they need your first line winger to start producing a little bit more. So I think that'll be an interesting switch. And with that, Barrett Hayton is now between Kerfoot and Crouse on the third line. So those are the switches in the forward group. And then second line is remaining Michelli, Cooley, Gunther, and then McBain, Stenlund, and Carconi. So the team is doing 12 forwards and 6 defensemen again. They're going away from their 11-7. Coach said he kind of just feels good about where defense is. They feel like they've tightened that up and have some stability there, with Mata feeling better in the system. So they feel good about going back to 12 forwards. And that means Carconi will be in the lineup for the 3rd consecutive game for the first time this season, which is wild to think about after the year he had last year. But he hasn't played more than 2 games in a row until tonight. So he'll be on that 4th line. And, we can go into this more later, but I talked to him yesterday and he did not mince words. He said, I know I deserve to be in this lineup. I am an NHL player, and I know I have the talent to make a difference with this team. And, he's frustrated, as he should be. But he's handling it like a pro, and I think he doesn't take these opportunities lightly. So I think he's definitely a player to watch tonight. And then quickly, defense, Sergachev and Mata are now the top pair. They moved Kesslering down. The team just wanted Sergachev to have the puck more. And I think we've seen with Michael Kesslering, he's turned into somewhat of an offensive defenseman for the team, and he also wants the puck. So they split them up. And then Kolyachonok and Bortuzzo are still the healthy scratches. So other than the switch in the top 2 pairs, kind of the same rotations there. But yeah, they're definitely looking for solutions within the roster to get the offense going and maybe take some weight off of Sergachev and also let him jump into the play a little bit more.
Petey, I know we have a clip that we're going to play of Andre a little later, but Belle, I want to talk to you about this as well. This will happen a lot, obviously. Coaches will juggle lines, juggle D pairs when they're trying to find the right mix. And again, we've talked about how this team maybe is where it's supposed to be, and maybe expectations were a little too high. But what's the feeling about just trying to generate offense? What's at play there? What are they seeing from this team that's prohibiting them, I guess, from generating more offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main things we talked about last week too is special teams, power play. They didn't score one power play goal on their 4-game road trip against competition where they had power plays. And ones where if they had one power play goal in each game, it could have been a 1-goal game at certain points of the matchup, you know? So I think that's a really big thing. And they moved Kerfoot up to the first unit now instead of Barrett Hayton. So that's a switch they're making there. But coach has talked about kind of being open to change. And if you're not having success in this moment, it doesn't mean that you can't have it the next night, and you don't have to overhaul the whole system to get back to scoring. And it sounds redundant, but they're staying to the perimeter a lot. I think we spent like 10 minutes on this last time, and especially on the power play, the guys have even talked about it. They're not getting shots on net. Their first power play in, was it Vegas? I think they didn't have a single shot on goal. And that's an issue. And I think there's a difference between, they talked about we're shooting and we're missing the net with it, which is another issue in itself. And, you know, quality over quantity. But you look at the games, the one game that they won against St. Louis, that was their second highest shot volume game of the entire season. So there is a correlation of them winning games and them scoring when they just throw the puck on net. So I think it's a volume thing, but I also think it's fighting for that inside ice. It's screening. It's getting a guy like Nick Bukestad in front of the goalie and in the crease when Keller and Schmaltz are trying to produce. So I think it's getting back to the grittier little details that they were good at the beginning of the season. Not that they aren't working hard now, but even Nick Schmaltz said it. He was like, I need to battle a bit more in front of the net and just get a rebound goal to get me started. And I think that's what these guys need to do more of, is not being, you know, too specific on the shot they want to take, and kind of just having a little bit more fight in them and killer instinct. In Nick Bukestad's words, he's been using that a lot. But yeah, I think switching up the lines can help produce that, but you never really know because they have been shut out twice in the last week. So I think this is where you're seeing, can they turn it around, or is this a really bigger problem that the team is going to have to deal with maybe externally?
Well, we had Dominic Moore on a week ago, and he said one of the issues with Keller and Schmaltz specifically is the two of them are pass first guys to each other. Like you always see Keller looking for Schmaltz for that one more play. They got to shoot, and this team has 30 shots plus in one of their last 8, which is not good enough. So right now, anytime they get the puck on the stick, it's got to go to the net, and I think Bukestad will help with that. But one of the other things we talked about this lineup changes, and we talked about this team looking for a spark. One of the players that was signed to provide that spark and bring a little bit of energy to this team is Liam O'Brien. He still can't get into the lineup. So you're looking at Carcone could add offense, and they need offense, or you look at a Liam O'Brien that can add a spark, and they desperately need a spark. So it's trying to pick which guy is right, and I guess they're going with Carcone for now. But is there any discussion about Liam O'Brien getting back into this lineup?
It's interesting. At the beginning of the season, it was called a rotation, and I think you saw that. They were going in and out, him and Carcone, and sometimes Yamamoto, obviously, he got sent down, so that's not an issue now. But it doesn't feel like a standard rotation now. It doesn't feel like something that they have scheduled, like O'Brien will play now, Carcone will play now. I think they're really going based off of performance. That's what coach said yesterday. He said Carcone played great the last 2 games. That line has been able to play against other top lines, so we're going to keep going with that. So I think it's turned into more of a feel factor. And also, like we said, this team needs to score. I would put more money on Michael Carcone scoring than Liam O'Brien. 21 goals last season. And I think obviously physicality, they're getting out hit every night, but how many minutes is Liam O'Brien really playing? How many hits is he really throwing? I think you'd rather have Carcone on that line with 2 big bodies in McBain and Stenlund, who are going to offer kind of the same edge that O'Brien has to add some versatility down there. But I do think too, we talked about it earlier this season, but the fans want Liam O'Brien. You know, the jerseys were announced today, and he is among the 7 select players getting their jerseys sold in the team store and online, which, you know, like it shows the demand. They chose the players that are going to sell, and I don't think that coach or anyone's going to be swayed by that, but he is part of the new DNA of this Utah team, from whether you like it or not. So I don't know how that factors into it, but O'Brien works in some games. I just think when you've scored 3 goals in the last 3 games, 4 goals, you go with the guy that you think can put the puck in the net.
Well, Belle, it's time to hear from the head coach of the team and get his insight on what's been going on and what they need to do to fix that. So, Emma, it is now time to hear from André Tourigny.
Do you think you're going to do 12 forwards again, or how do you choose 11-7 or 12-6?
It go with load management, goes with the performance as well of a little bit everybody.
So does that mean Carconi will play again?
Yeah. Cart's playing well. He's bringing speed right now. We need a spark offensively, and I think his line with Stanny and Banner played well, and he generate good offense, but as well good forecheck, and I think give energy a little bit.
Is Määttä Sergachev going to be a pairing next game?
Yes.
For most of the pairings we saw out on the ice today.
Exactly.
What went into the kind of switching those up, the thought process?
There's a lot. Underlying numbers, for one. Two, I think the underlying numbers of 98 and 7 together are not as good as the other pairings. So switch that. And I think we want 2 of them like to have the puck a lot. And we want Sergei to have the puck even more.
And you think Määttä allows him to do that?
Well, sorry?
You think Määttä allow him to
I think so. I think Olli has more experience. He will be a good partner for him. And if you look at the numbers of Olli since he's with us, everybody he's playing with play above 50% of expected goals. So he's been helping others. So I think he will be a good match.
What have you seen from Lamoureux in his time here? I know he's kind of approaching that 3-week point of.
Yeah, I think he's obviously all the skill, the size, the skating, the puck movement, but as well he's competitive. Every time he gets out there, he's compete. He has a good read of the game. He's not a guy who will be extremely flashy, but it's a guy who, when he has the puck, he make a good first pass. He has good chain connector, and he's physical and he's one-on-one, and he takes a lot of room on the ice. So I think he's helping in a lot of different areas.
Is he proving that he belongs here long term?
Belong to here. You belong here for tomorrow, that's for sure. That's well, I don't want to look too far ahead, and there will be a decision about my pay grade.
Can you talk about Kesselring a little bit as well? Just what you like about him, what you maybe don't like about him, if there's anything?
Kess is a big. It's consistency inside of his game, not inside of the week. Is inside of his game, his decision. That is what is the progression in front of him. What he brings to the team is really competitive. He's good at one-on-one. He closes quickly on puck carrier. He has a good shot. He moves the puck well. He can carry the puck. He can create separation with his opponent. He's really strong. So he's a guy who still need to learn the game in the game, because the skill is there, the compete is there, the attitude is there. Is the little thing will keep growing in his game.
3-game homestand coming up. Is there any added motivation to kind of, make your home ice a hard place to play for opponents this week?
Yeah, it is. You look at our opponent, our elite opponent this week. We need to look at one game at a time. But for us, I think we improve a lot lately defensively. Our offense suffer from it. So we need to have the right balance of playing good defense, but still making play and playing confidence offensively and being creative offensively. I think we work a little bit at it this week in practice. Tomorrow will be a good test, because Carolina is probably the toughest team to play against in terms of possession and making plays. They apply so much pressure on the puck carrier, so it will be a good test for us, but we're confident the way we play defensively, we can be in every game.
Talked about eventually needing both goalies on a weekly basis this month. Do you anticipate kind of a rotation in the second half of this month?
I don't know if it will be a rotation, but Veggie's going in
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now a month into the season, what have you seen from Keller in terms of being the captain and stepping up?
In a month, what I saw from Kels, I think he's really competitive. I think when we needed to tighten up our defense as a team, I think he lead the way by example of doubling down on his defense. I think his work ethic, practice every game is the same. He's really competitive, and I think he showed by his action off the ice how much he cared for his teammate, how much he cared for the team. So I think he did a good job as a leader so far.
Is he more vocal now that he has the seat?
No, he will never be. It's not him. You don't become captain at doing something you're not good at. When you're captain, it's for a reason, because what you are, it's good. You know, what's had as for him as a captain is responsibility when thing needs to be addressed in the team, but he already did that, so he's just growing his role in that.
It's funny because one of the things he talked about with Carolina is how smothering this team is and how they don't give you any room to move. And this is going to be their toughest competition in this upcoming stretch. So there is some concern. The bright spot, though, Bell, is he did talk about how well they've done on defending and how much they've defended. So I think that is a bright spot. One other fact I want to throw out here on those Carolina Hurricanes. They've scored 3 or more goals. Well, not 3 or more. See, 4 or more goals in their last 9 games. 4 or more in 9 straight games, Craig. Vejmelka, is that good or bad for Karel Vejmelka, who last seen against the Winnipeg Jets?
I mean, we know from watching Karel that he likes shot volume. He performs better when he faces a lot of shots. He's going to face a lot of shots against the Carolina Hurricanes. They've been a shot volume team for a very long time, but this is a matchup that has given this franchise, I know it's a new franchise, but let's be honest, not really a lot of trouble in the past. I remember covering some games in Carolina where it was like a root canal on one side of the ice where they were just getting run out of the building. This is a tough matchup for them. Belle, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Vejmelka, it's a good option. You know, against the Winnipeg Jets, they were averaging 4.92 goals per game. When Utah came in there, Carolina's averaging 4.21, like you said, and Vejmelka only let in 2 goals. The third one was an empty netter, and he was locked in. It wasn't a high shot volume game from Winnipeg. I think it was 21 or 22 shots on goal, but he played well, and he's had the unfortunate experience of the team scoring a cumulative 1 goal while he's been in net. So he's played 11 periods for the Utah Hockey Club this season, 2 full games, and then he relieved Ingram for 2 periods earlier in the season. They've gotten shut out in 2 of them and scored 1 goal in the other. So I think for him, I talked to him after the Winnipeg game where he's like, you want to feel good about your individual game because he did, but when your name is next to 3 losses, it doesn't help the confidence. But coach said after the game, he was like, I feel terrible for the guy. I feel bad for him. Like, he goes in and he does his job, and we just haven't been able to find our offense when he's in net. I don't think it's a correlation, honestly. I think it's an unfortunate coincidence. But yeah, so I think there's no worries around if he's ready, if he can put on a good performance for them. It's if the rest of the team can support him. You know, Vejmelka can have a shutout, but if Utah doesn't score, it's still overtime. So I think they feel confident in him. It's just a matter of him being there when it's a full team effort and not just, defense.
I'm sitting here thinking Belle's going to have to sit through a 10-round shootout at 0-0. No, don't worry, Belle. I don't think that's going to happen. But goaltending's been an issue. Connor Ingram at this time a year ago, we were touting as an all-star candidate. He hasn't had the numbers to validate that this year. Vejmelka, I thought, has been more consistent than he was a year ago, but he hasn't had that dynamic, hey, I stopped the gate for everything. And that may come tonight. I think he's been more consistent than a year ago. I think it's Ingram that I think is the one you got to go, uh-oh. But that brings up my next point, Belle. You've been around these guys. Losing stinks. And people don't like to lose. And people on this team are competitive. They don't like to lose. And they like to score. And they've shut out 4 times this year. Is the mood or the feeling around this team changing? Is there that negative vibe coming in when you go around the rink?
I wouldn't say negative. No, I think Lawson Crouse had a good interview after the Winnipeg game where, they played pretty well against the top team in the league, but he was like, we're not at, a point in this season or a rebuild or anything like that where we're taking moral victories. Every guy in that room wants to win. So, sure, they built their game against Winnipeg, they built it against Vegas, but those guys, they're frustrated and they're mad, but that doesn't turn into them turning against each other or a negative vibe at the rink whatsoever. I think having those 3 days off too, going back to that, they all said it was a really good mental reset too, and physical reset to just go to the rink and be happy to be there with each other and be home. And I think the accountability aspect too has been promising. Guys aren't getting down on themselves or each other. They're kind of addressing that this isn't acceptable. This isn't the kind of team we want to be. And this is how we get better. So I think that's what you want to hear. Who knows if that translates onto the ice? Who knows if they're just saying the right things? But vibes, if that's what we want to call it, at practice this week, we're pretty positive. I think part of that had to do with introducing Archie, the new 13-week-old black Labrador retriever, the new team dog. And he was at practice on Tuesday, their first one back. And all the guys were petting him and he was in the locker room and stuff. So not to say that completely changes. Let's see the win record after introducing Archie. But, the guys were joking about it. But they're like, it is nice to have something fun at the rink and to just be here and get back to enjoying hockey. So I wouldn't worry. I'm personally not worried for, internal negativity. I think they're all pretty, have a good head on their shoulders. And a lot of that comes from coach.
That's a perfect segue because dogs can solve a lot of things. And I want to ask you about Lawson Crouse, who has a very famous dog, Butter Pig. What's the feeling about what Lawson has brought to this team? We were on our post-game show, Petey and my well-planned post-game show while BYU was playing Utah. We decided to go live after a 4-0 loss. So the few people that were actually watching us seemed a little frustrated that we weren't diving into Lawson Crouse's offensive struggles a little more. What's the feeling about that side of his game and then what he's giving them overall?
Yeah, I think it's the same as what we talked about with Schmaltz. They're not happy. They want to score. Like, you ask them and they're not going to give you a long, eloquent answer. They're just like, yeah, it sucks. Like, I want to score. I want to help this team win. And I think that's where it comes from. It's not an individual selfishness. It's that they want to make an impact on the score sheet to get these teams in better situations. But I think Lawson Crouse, away from scoring and maybe points, he's been one of their more impactful players. And I think I personally have seen kind of a step up in the last week or so. I think against Winnipeg, he was excellent. And against St. Louis, too, that third line, when Bukestad was still on it, Coach made a joke. He said, if this was PlayStation hockey, I would have chosen the option to keep them out on the ice for a full 60 minutes. And I think you're seeing him play with a little extra heart recently. He's had, consecutive games with 4 to 5 hits, leading the team in hits. And he's more of a battle level for loose pucks in the corners and stuff. So I think he's making up for it in ways he can. This team always talks about if you don't have your A game, you have to find a B game. You can't just shut off. You have to still make a difference in the game. So I think he's trying to find ways to do that. And I think that third line has been one of their better defensive forward lines too. So obviously, we keep saying it, frustrating, have to find consistency. I think that's been the early theme for this team. But I think Lawson Crouse is still one of those guys with a letter on his chest, and he's trying to lead in the ways that he can.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to score. And maybe it's him because he's scoreless in his last 7. He's got to score. He's a guy that they expected to get between 20 and 30 goals this year. And hopefully he can break through tonight because they do need someone to find the back of the net. One more player I want to ask you about, Belle, before we let you go. It's a guy that I don't know if we expected to see in the NHL quite this soon. I think with the injuries to Marino and Dursey, I think they had to accelerate their plans with Maveric Lamoureux and bring him up maybe a little bit earlier than they had planned in his development path. Having said that, he's in the lineup again tonight, and they're resting 2 more defensemen that are healthy. Bortuzzo and Kolyachonok are again out of the lineup. They're carrying 8 defensemen right now. One, how long can that last with 8 defensemen on their roster? And is this the best place for Maveric Lamoureux to develop?
I think he's only gotten better, which you never know when a guy gets called up. Sometimes it's the adrenaline from your first 2-3 NHL games, and then they're tired and then they can't keep up and they kind of get lost in the system of it all. But I think he's been good. And I think him and Cole have been a nice match. We talked about it earlier in the season that with Cole, he's going to do what he's good at. He's not going to be the biggest puck moving defenseman who has the speed, but he's going to block shots and allow Lamoureux, who, is 6'6", 6'7" on skates, but has real speed with him, has a serious shot too, to kind of jump up in the play. And I think the best thing for Utah fans about Lamoureux is he's confident. He's 20, but that, he's going out there and he knows what he can add to the team. He's shooting every night. He's logging almost 20 minutes or more a night. And, he got in that fight in St. Louis because of that hit, which, was probably warranted. A teammate's going to stick up for another one, but he dropped the gloves and he held his own. So I think he's really embracing the NHL opportunity. And he, I would say, has one of the best attitudes and mindsets in that locker room. And I think it comes with being new, being fresh, wanting to prove yourself. But he's at the rink every day trying to get better. There's obviously lapses in his game. He's getting thrown into a team that needs defense to almost be perfect to win games. And he's obviously not going to be that on a night-to-night basis. But I think for what you could hope to get out of a 20-year-old making his NHL debut for you, he's been pretty good. But at the same time, Bortuzzo has 1,000 times the experience as him, and Kolyachonok is a guy that you probably want to use this year to develop maybe more because he's been in the system for a bit longer. So you heard Coach say it in that interview. He's here for today. He's here for tomorrow. And they make decisions off of that. But in my eyes, is there a better situation for them right now? I don't think so. I'm not sure if anyone brings anything better than what Lamoureux is giving right now. So until it doesn't work, I would say leave it. But, like Coach said, too, above my pay grade, I do not make those decisions.
It's an interesting discussion, too, because you're right. I'm not sure that they have a better option in terms of what they need from their blue line right now. At the same time, is this what's best for Maveric Lamoureux? Is he better served being in Tucson, playing in all situations, playing heavy minutes, playing away from this pressure cooker all the time where maybe he is going to make some of those mistakes and they're going to leave scars? I don't know, Petey. I'd be curious for your thoughts on this too, but it is a tough decision for the management team right now.
It's tough. And you talk about immediate success. To Belle's point, she's right. If you want to put your best 6 defensemen that are on the roster right now, Maveric Lamoureux is one of those 6. Mm-hmm. Absolutely correct. I think he's the better option than Kolyachonok, and I think he's better than Bortuzzo as an option today. My concern is not as a coach. As a coach, I want him in my lineup. As a manager, when I'm looking at next year, the year after, because I said this on a show earlier that the Maveric Lamoureux goes back to get a puck in this game on this most recent road trip, and he doesn't have time. There's a player right on his back, and he just kind of pokes it away, turns the puck over, and there's a scoring opportunity. What I'd like to see is Maveric Lamoureux in the American League at 20 get that same puck, same situation, same time, without a guy right on his back with the time to make a play, carry the puck behind the net, now make a good outlet play. And I think he doesn't get that time in the NHL. Learning by fire is great. I think you can excel faster. However, a player like Maveric Lamoureux, I think he needs more time. I think he needs time to make plays so he doesn't feel like he's under pressure all the time, so he can be the elite puck-moving player that I think he can be. And I don't know if he can develop that with the pressure he's going to take in and night out with Utah. But you're right, Belle. He is the best of the 6 options that they got right now.
No, I would also say quickly, I agree with that. I think he would get better if he was in the AHL, but I also think it's a unique situation where next season, if Marino, Dursey are good to go, Kesselring is, feeling good, there's probably not a spot for Lamoureux, maybe for opening night. So I think it's not like there's going to be the spot open for him forever. He could spend the whole next season in the AHL and still have that confidence of knowing that he can come up and play. So I think it would be different if they didn't have 2 main defensemen coming in and taking those spots in the future, and those are kind of unmovable people. So I think you have to balance both of it. It's like, do you send him down now? And I don't know.
It's tough. It's tough. Well, Belle, you don't have to worry about it. You have to worry about getting to the Delta Center to go watch this game and the 0-0 shootout that we are all counting on. So, Belle, get to the arena safe. Thanks so much. To make sure you check out Belle Fraser at the Salt Lake Tribune and read all of her stuff. She had her notebook out today that you could want to follow this team and have boots on the ground. Make sure you're following what Belle Fraser 1 is feeding out. Belle, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Belle.
We'll see you soon. Well, Craig, we will get more thoughts on all of these new players after the break. But for now, I want to tell you about FOCO. FOCO is the leading manufacturer of sports entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and more. With a little smooth jazz. It's the best officially licensed gear for all sports fandoms. Whether it's hoodies, jackets, beachwear, or overalls.
Groovy.
Foco puts the fun in sports. There is something for fans for almost every occasion. Get all your Utah Jazz and Utah Utes collectibles and merchandise, and we've mentioned it on every show. The first official Utah Hockey Club merch is now available. You can pre-order the Dylan Gunther first franchise gold bobblehead. Foco always has our back for sports, and they can have yours too. Get the best gear around by visiting foco.com and using the code ALLCITY10 for gosh, Craig, it's late. For all non-presale items, use the promo code ALLCITY10 for 10% off. And then our rugged road, the camper and fisherman that Craig Morgan is, he does not leave home without his rugged road cooler. It's dedicated to creating durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best like Craig. Whether you're on land or water, Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on your every adventure. Rugged Road coolers are designed to always float upright, which is important when Craig is going through those rapids, so you never lose a drink. Rugged Road coolers are incredibly light, making them easy to transport on any trip. The coolers are guaranteed to keep your contents cool for 7 days, and they're great for fishing, tubing, camping, and the only sport I partake in, tailgating. These coolers are designed to meet the needs of every outdoor and sports enthusiast, so gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers. Reliable, durable, and built to be used. Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use the code ALLCITY for 10% off.
Petey, you know what I like to put in my Rugged Road cooler?
What?
Little Pellegrino, buddy.
Oh, God. It just continues. Did you know, Emma, did you know Craig went to prep school? Does it show?
I did.
Yeah. I don't even own a brush or a comb.
Twice. Yep.
Craig, by the way, I have wondered this too, Emma, as we're talking about my hair, because we can clearly see that I'm a mess, but that's par for the course. Craig's is always perfect. So I've always wondered, wig or no? You decide.
You want wait. You want me to decide if Craig is wearing a wig or not?
I'm just thinking. I'm throwing it out there to the chat. Like my hair, clearly it's a mess, so it's not a. Craig's hair is always perfect, always dark, and I'm questioning if it might be a wig. That's all.
Here's what we'll do.
I should wear a wig on the show now. Like the next show, I should wear a different hairstyle entirely, I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Emma.
100% agree with that. Here's what we'll do. We'll put a poll in the chat to see what everyone thinks. And at the end of the show, we can check it out. We'll see if people think that Craig is wearing a wig or not. And then maybe by tomorrow at 10 a.m., Craig will be wearing a wig.
And that's the kind of content we bring you here at the All Utah Hockey Podcast. I think that's important hockey news right there, Craig. Well, we finished off the last segment talking about Maveric Lamoureux, one of the new faces for this Utah Hockey Club, but there are a lot of new faces that were signed here over the summer, either through trade, free agency, or just acquired through other means. So I think it's time. We're almost to American Thanksgiving, where it's an important deadline. So I want to go through some of these players that were acquired over the summer, and the biggest name that this team has acquired since they become the Utah Hockey Club from the Tampa Bay Lightning, Mikhail Sergachev. Your thoughts, progress so far on Mikhail Sergachev?
Like most of the people on this roster, I think they'd like to get more from him, particularly on the offensive side. I think people expected maybe a little more production from a number one defenseman. But if you look at the minutes, if you look at the underlying numbers, if you look at the matchups, there's a lot to like about Sergachev. Let's remember, this is a new situation for him, new teammates, new city, new system, as you've mentioned, Petey, right? There's a lot of changes for Mikhail Sergachev, and he hasn't had the defense partner that we thought he was going to have in John Marino. So a lot to digest for Mikhail Sergachev. When I look at his game, I don't say there's the problem with this team. This is why this team isn't winning. Yeah. Would they like to get more out of Mikhail Sergachev? Absolutely. And they may, because he's going to grow into this role. But he's giving them a lot, especially just the minutes that he is playing. And they are hard minutes, Petey.
Yeah, and he's playing against, like you said, I was talking to someone today that works for another team, and we were talking about the Utah Hockey Club and where they are in the standings and the wins and losses. And the first comment was, well, if they had Marino and Dursey in the lineup, is it a different team? And absolutely it is. Without a doubt. So if Sergachev had a consistent pair, which he hasn't. They've juggled people in and out with him this season, and he got a consistent pair from the beginning. Would that help his offensive output? And the answer is yes. Like, absolutely, it would be better. The problem is what happens is that the expectations are so high when he comes here, and you want to see him come in and he's tearing it up. He's leading the league in points by defenseman. It's just not realistic. And one of the things that you take and let's put the shoe on the other foot. When you go to Mosier, going to Tampa Bay, Mosier's been great. But Tampa Bay's got a room full of leaders, Stanley Cup champions, veteran players that have played together for an extremely long time that this Utah club just doesn't have. So, yes, Sergachev, you could expect more in Tampa because Tampa was better. It was a better team. So I think he's offered 25 minutes, hard minutes against some of the best players on the opposing teams all season long without having the benefit of having the Andrei Vasilevsky behind him and the Tampa Bay forwards in front of him.
And Victor Hedman, on the blue line, and a lot of experience, and John Cooper. And should we keep going with this thread?
Yeah. No, but you get the idea, right? Like he's been good, but keep in mind it's still Utah, and they're not ready to be a playoff team. I mean, this isn't a team that's driving right now for the playoffs. I'm sorry, the people want to see that, and I think that he's playing big minutes, and he is taking strides. Now, does everybody on this roster need to provide more? Well, I think if you asked André Tourigny and Bill Armstrong, the answer would be yes. Like, everybody needs to provide more than they're providing right now. So give him a little more time, and I think he will come out offensively. But that brings up another guy that you've got to write about. So this is really interesting that we're going to get to talk about him next. Is a player that they got from the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, and that's Kevin Stenlund, a guy who's been very consistent on the fourth line, but most importantly, his faceoffs. And you got a chance to talk to him about his faceoff. What are your thoughts on Kevin Stenlund?
Yeah, it was a fun story to write, to be honest. I love, as you know, diving into these stories where, especially like something like faceoffs, where there's so much that goes on in those few seconds, Petey, that people don't see. Whether it's I'm reading what the other guy's doing, whether it's I'm talking to the linesman, whether I'm talking trash to the center across from me, I'm talking to my line mates to tell them what's coming. All of that stuff that happens in these couple seconds between when the two centers arrive in the circle and that puck's dropped and possession is decided fascinates me. So first off, burying the lead here, Kevin Stenlund is leading the NHL in faceoff percentage for anybody. Wow. And I know I put out it with 190 attempts more. He's got 193. He's going to have over 200 and qualify for the NHL leaders after tonight. There's just a slight cutoff there. He'll be there. We'll see what he does tonight. But he's been good for a very long time. The fun part of the story was diving into his past and figuring out where things got better, because he admitted, when I was young, I was pretty good at faceoffs, but if I went into the dot and won it, I was like, cool. If I didn't, whatever. It didn't matter that much. He had a teammate in the Swedish Hockey League that helped him along. John Madden, who's an assistant coach with Utah now, helped him while he was with the Cleveland Monsters in the AHL. And then our old friend, Rick Bowness, was the one who appealed to his ego and really told him, look, man, you got the tools to be really, really good at this. And that's when Kevin Stenlund turned the corner. And now, I mean, you look at it, he obviously played a key role for Florida in this regard as well. He was a really good faceoff man for them last year. Bill Armstrong talked about it when they acquired him. But to be leading the league, with a gaudy 65% of your draws. And not just that, we've talked about this, you and I, off the air. Not all faceoffs are created equal. If you win a neutral zone faceoff, whatever, it's cool that you started with the puck, but it's not the be all end all. But if you're winning those defensive zone faceoffs, if you're winning those PK faceoffs, that's a big deal. He's winning 2/3 of his PK faceoffs. And as Madden pointed out, they've killed 4 or 5 on threes. He's won all those faceoffs. That's a big deal.
Yeah, so make sure, if you haven't read Craig's article, make sure you go to allcitynetwork.com and read Craig's article. It really tells how valuable this player is to this team. And I think he is the prototypical fourth line player in the National Hockey League right now. And I know people, you always say, well, can you higher up, lower up in the run? You need to fill every role in an NHL roster to win a Stanley Cup. You just do. Kevin Stenlund filled the same role on a Stanley Cup champion team. This is where he fits. This is the role he plays. He's fast enough to keep up. He's fast enough to get on the forecheck. He's big enough to separate players from the puck, and he's smart enough to be in the right place at the right time. He is exactly what you need in that role. So I think he's done everything he's expected.
Yeah,
Craig.
it was fun, by the way, catching up with our old friend Brad Richardson as well, who I'm sure you remember because you were in the
He
room. You saw the
cheated.
antics.
He cheated. He did. He'll
It's
tell
not
you he
cheating if
cheated.
you don't get caught. Richie will tell you this. He cheated in sewer ball. He cheated in everything he could if he could get away with it.
Everything.
My favorite,
Yes.
the two things that I took away from this. First of all, really, you really said this, but apparently he did, and Derek Stepan confirmed this. Hey, look across the set. Hey, buddy, your shoes on your lace is untied on your skate.
Mhm.
Somebody really fall for that? He's like, yeah, a few people would look down and then you win the draw. Like, seriously? That happens.
He's if you don't know Brad Richardson, he's a former Arizona Coyote player with this previous franchise. And I tell you what, he is old school hockey. If he's got a problem with you, you are going to know it because he will tell you to your face. And he was unbelievable in the face-off circle. One comment I want to bring up right now in the chat from Ethan Henry. Hi, guys, from Tegan and Ethan in New Brunswick. We actually got to meet them at Mullet Arena.
Yeah.
I think they were getting married at the time. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know the time zones in New Brunswick. It's half hour off. I don't get it. I don't get it. But thanks for still listening to Craig, and I can't believe you still do that. Off to the next guy. And I'm gonna pronounce things how I pronounce them, and then you can fill it in. But we talked about a defenseman in Mikhail Sergachev and how important he was to this edition. Mm-hmm. The most recent addition on the back end for the team, a guy they had a trade for during the season because they had a hole to fill, and that's Olli Määttä.
Olli Määttä.
I know I
do
did
like
the pause.
You remember the pause. It's a little more Määttä. That's what he said.
So he hasn't provided points, but he's not there to provide points. Let's be honest. He's going to play. They weren't expecting him to play 20 minutes of ice time. He wasn't playing 20 minutes of ice in Detroit. I tell you that. He was a 15 and under minute guy in Detroit when he was in the lineup. And so he's provided much more to this team than I think even the expectations were. I think they've been thrilled with his defending, his stick work, and his ability to play from the blue line. And it shows tonight because they're rewarding him by playing him with Mikhail Sergachev. Thoughts on Olli Määttä?
Yeah, well, that's it right there. They're playing him with Sergachev. And listen, some of this is, okay, we got to juggle things because it's not working. But I understand what Andre is saying. He wants Sergachev to play with the puck more. And when you have two guys maybe on the same pair that want that same thing, it's not going to work. Olli Määttä is a guy who can protect Mikhail Sergachev. That's going to be his role, and he knows that role. He can fill that role perfectly. This is a good pickup. This is a good pickup for this team. This is a guy that can help them. Again, he's not going to give you what John Marino gives you or Sean Durzi gives you. You can't expect that out of him, but he's a guy who knows his strengths. He's been around the league, and he understands what role he has to fill on the ice. I think he's done it well.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's the right place at the right time for him as well. Like, he wants to play more minutes. He wants to be a valuable guy. He's a guy playing for a contract, and he wants to find an NHL home for next season. So I think it's really good for him as well. I want to point out another comment in the chat, Craig. Yay. Hello. Not going to lie, Craig is a sharp guy. How about that? Yeah, hello, Craig. Like I will say this for those that don't know Craig. The last thing Craig needs is a ego boost. Like, dude's fine. We're not going to worry about Craig being concerned, one, about his appearance, or B, with
just my kids.
Are they there too?
Yeah. No.
Dad's a good-looking guy. Look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, hello.
It's not a wig, by the way, or is it?
It's not, or is it? So, and a couple of other comments talking about the I'm gonna just bring it up, the SEG Plus app restarting after commercial breaks. And I will tell you this: I've had the same issue because I come back from a commercial break and it's still black, and it's still black, and I go. I look at my app on the NHL app. I go, oh my goodness, they're playing. So I just have to refresh. So that's a reminder. If you're watching it on your laptop, just hit the refresh button when it goes to a black screen, and you'll be back in action. I know it happened to Craig in the last game too, so don't be afraid to try to just hit there's my ad for SCG Plus to watch the Utah Hockey Club outside of your area. Ian Cole, another guy they added at defense over the summertime, another guy that they talked about, an experienced NHL guy, cup winner, veteran player. Thoughts on what he adds to this Utah team? Is he the right player at the right time?
Well, I mean, we know what he is, right? Ian Cole is not the most fleet of foot, right? He's a guy who's going to have to stay within himself. He's going to have to understand gaps and what he's capable of doing. Petey, when I look at the time on ice, this isn't a perfect situation, right? You don't want Ian Cole logging 20 minutes for your hockey team, but this is the problem with Marino and Durzi being out. You have to do it right now. At least he's a veteran. He understands what he needs to do, but this isn't the perfect role for him right now.
Yeah. It's hard. I like Ian Cole and what he's done. I think defensively he's been great. He's been blocking shots on the penalty kill. He does those little things, but you're right. I don't know if you want Ian Cole playing 20 minutes. I think Utah needs him to right now. They really don't have a choice. And one of the guys we've got to go to next, another defenseman that has found himself in and out of the lineup a lot, is Robert Bortuzzo. And what do you think about his role and what he's provided so far?
Well, his role is about what I expected. I expected him to be in and out of the lineup, a veteran who's just going to give you depth when you need a guy, whether it's by injury or you need to send a message or somebody's just slumping, you can slide him in and you know you're going to get veteran minutes. But he's not logging a lot of ice time. This is sort of what I expected from Robert Bortuzzo. They haven't had to turn to him that much yet. I do wonder what happens when Mavlam goes down, who comes back up. We can get to that in the third segment because we're going to talk about what's next for this team. But I do wonder how they manage this long-term, Petey, because it's not like, Marino and Durzi will be back soon. No, they won't. They're not going to be back for a long time. And that's a tough situation.
Yeah, they're months away. They're months away. So it's not like they're going to be back in a week or two. It's something we have to look at. We have to talk about John Marino. Unfortunately, he's a guy that they added in the offseason to help with their defending, a guy that can help on the penalty kill, a guy that can skate well enough to play against the best players in the National Hockey League and help them defend from the red line in off the rush. And we haven't got to see him yet.
Yeah, Craig. And this is a guy that André Tourigny told me he had penciled in camp as the guy that was going to play with Sergachev. That was going to be your top pair. John, I don't think people realize how good John Marino is. Like 2 seasons ago, he was unbelievable. Maybe took some steps back last year, injuries and stuff, but they were really excited, not just about Sergachev. Of course, they acquired him to be their number one defenseman, but they felt like they acquired a top pair, and people don't even have a sense of what this guy might have brought to this team, and that's a shame. Belle's right. Like when these guys come back, when both of these guys come back, assuming everybody else is healthy, it really juggles this whole blue line again. Mavlam's probably not going to be on the team, and we haven't even talked about the fact that Dmitry Simashev might be coming over from Russia at that point and might slide right into this lineup as well. So who knows how all of that's going to change. It's just a shame when you make a move like that you don't even get a taste of what it's going to look like. The guy's just been out for a long time. And listen, even when he comes back, if he comes back this season, it's going to take him a while to get into game shape. They'll be well past the midpoint of the season. And you know how the NHL season ramps up in terms of intensity. He's just not going to be at that speed yet.
Yeah, and that's too bad because I think we've said it already once in the show. Where would this team be with Durzi and Marino both healthy in the lineup playing every night? Now, does that mean they're over the playoff line? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they're close enough to get to the playoff spot or be exciting to playoff spot or play meaningful games in February. Team's not ready, but But are they performing better with those two guys in the lineup? And I think the answer is yes. So now you look at where this team is, struggling to score, struggling to win. This league's about winning. It's about playoffs. It's about getting better. It's about moving up that ramp. So we're getting close to American Thanksgiving. Craig, what is next for the Utah Hockey Club? So we saw it bringing in Olli Määttä. And can this team make another addition through trades? Is that a reasonable thought for Utah hockey fans?
We've talked about this before, Petey. I just don't think it makes sense for the long-term goals of this club. And we had Chris Armstrong on earlier saying that they're pretty much in lockstep with Bill Armstrong. Well, you hope that's true, right? Because we know that this team is not quite ready. Bill Armstrong's been very transparent about teams in their fourth year out of the rebuild, how often they make the playoffs. It's not often. And this team has deficiencies. We've said it before. We've been saying it for 2 decades, Petey. They don't have the talent up the middle to be that type of team yet. They're just not good enough at the center position. Connor Geeky's out the door. I've said this a million times. What's coming? What's coming that you really feel like, okay, this guy could be a top 6 center? I'm not convinced they even have a guy. So there's a lot of issues still. So you got to be really careful. What are you making a trade for? Just for the immediacy of this season? And are you mortgaging part of your future when you're just not ready anyway. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it is a weird situation to be without two defensemen for this long a period of time. It really, I think it impacts the evaluation of your team. How do you get an accurate read when two such important pieces are not there?
Yeah, and it's fair because one of the positions we have commented on today already is the goaltending. Well, are Ingram's numbers better if John Marino and Sean Durzi are in the lineup? I can just surmise that the answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
Because John Marino, especially, is a very good defenseman. And so would that limit your scoring chances against? Probably, which again, limits your goals against. So it does shape your whole entire season. And I don't think there's trades on the horizon. I don't, but again, I do this for a living. I'm not in that room having to make decisions and try to please a fan base. So I don't think it's coming. I don't think it's imminent. I think this team really needs to think more about the future than they do the present. But one of the things they can do in the present without losing assets for the future is they can call players up. And they do have a minor league team down in Tucson, Arizona that has players.
Yeah.
Is there any thought of calling anybody up?
Well, I mean, I think so. Listen, we were talking to talking about Michael Carcone earlier, and again, I've stressed this before. They're not actively shopping this guy. Would he like to find another home where he gets a better opportunity? Yeah, but they got to get the right return, and they got to be careful because you don't want to further deplete your depth. If you give up a guy like Michael Carcone and then you have an injury up front, well, who's replacing that scoring potential? But, you've probably talked to Steve Potvin more than I have thus far this season about what's happening down there. When you look at that forward group, it's not the same as that blue line group where you have like high-end prospects. They've got some really good players down there. Mav Lamb was down there. We assume he's going to be back there. You've got Artem Duda. You've got Maximilian Zuber, who's more of a depth defenseman, but a really good piece of your future. When you look at the forward group in particular, who do you see as guys that guy's going to get a call up, or that guy could help the team right now?
Yeah, and that's the problem. Because when we talked about it a year ago or 2 years ago, it was Josh Stone, it was Dylan Gunther, and you saw, they're coming. Right now, Igor Sokolov has been outstanding. Sokolov's got 14 points in 10 games, 8 goals in 10 games, their most consistent offensive player. And I do believe at some point this season, he will get an opportunity to play a game in the National Hockey League. I will think it will be more reward-based, and I think it will be later in the year. Having said that, he's been a really good American League player because the pace is what we talked about. Sokolov, one of the things you talk about is his pace. And I know they love him down there, love him. And they think he's a great player, works hard. All those things are true. But to play at an NHL level pace, you have to have a little bit more foot speed. And I think that's going to be a drawback for him right now. Doesn't mean he can't develop more, but I don't think he's the guy that you go, okay, he can come up and help us tomorrow. I think he'll get a game later in the year. And you're right, up front, Accurati, Agazino is a longtime AHL veteran guy, but he's not one of those guys you look at the lineup and go, yeah, he's ready. Julian Lutz and Hebig. There's nobody down there that's going other than Josh Stone, the guy that you sent down. And he goes through last weekend with no points on the entire weekend. I talked to their coach on there. He said he was great, worked incredibly hard, had a great weekend, just couldn't score. So right now, I don't think the future, I don't think there's help down below in the American League right now that's going to help them immediately.
Yeah, and Josh in particular, if you listen to the comments from Andre, from Bill, from Josh himself, this move, Andre talked a little bit about confidence with the puck. Josh didn't necessarily agree that it wasn't playing with confidence, but he wasn't scoring. He wasn't producing. And I think a big part of this move is to help him find his offense again. They do want him to be a guy who produces at the NHL. He wants to be a guy who produces at the NHL level. He hasn't been able to find that touch consistently like he did in that 11-game cameo at the end of last season. So it seems like it makes sense for Josh Stone to be down in Tucson for a good spell here, reacquaint himself with his offensive game, work with Potts, who he's known forever. We've talked about all this. They're probably going to have to look elsewhere, but I just don't see a lot of options for offense down in Tucson. You're probably not getting that element. You're getting more like depth than anything else. So the guys up top, they're the ones that are going to have to figure out this scoring drought.
Yeah, and so here's the way too early look, Craig. We talk about American Thanksgiving coming up in the next few weeks, and that's kind of the demarcation to go, hey, we've still got a chance and we can run at this, or maybe this isn't our year. I'm concerned with their inability to score that by the time they get to American Thanksgiving, and more importantly, the trade deadline. This is a team that's not going to look for short-term solutions. They're going to look for long-term success. So having said that, what now?
Yeah, I mean, write it out. Like Bill said this, right? November and December, they're going to make or break us. So they'll know, like, are we still in the playoff hunt when the new year dawns, or are we definitely starting to think about the trade deadline, who we might move? Are we going to, dial up our old friend Chris Peters and our old friend Corey Proman and start talking draft prospects again, like we've been doing for the past few years? Listen, man, again, you said it earlier. If Sean Durzi and John Marino are in this lineup, I think this team is much closer to the playoff line, if not in it. Without those guys, and looking at this schedule, starting with this game against an unbelievable Carolina Hurricanes team, it's going to be tough sled. It's going to be really tough for this team to hang around and feel like, yeah, we still got a chance. I mean, last season, this team was in it until February. I think this team is going to have a harder time sticking around with those two guys out of the lineup.
I don't disagree, Craig. They've got a big game tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes. Just a couple of quick points and things you need to look for in tonight's game against one of the most smothering teams in the National Hockey League. I think the Utah Hockey Club, to have success against Carolina, they need to break out of their zone quickly and efficiently. And I don't care if they bang the puck off the glass and off the boards, because Carolina, if they get possession in the offensive zone, they're going to be there for a while. They possess the puck for very long amounts of times. They shoot the puck and then they go get it back again. So Utah's got to break out of the zone clean, and they can't turn the puck over in the neutral zone either. So get over the red line and dump it in. Incredibly simple hockey for Utah tonight. Out of their zone, into their zone, go get the puck. And one guy you got to watch out for, Martin Necas. Martin Necas has a 10-game point streak. He's third in the NHL in points right now. He's number 88 for Carolina. Keep an eye on him, 88 in the white, because he is unbelievable. Utah needs to move the puck quickly. No turnovers, no east-west play north-south, and get the puck at the net. Craig, I want to talk about your articles coming up anytime soon. Anything we need to be on the lookout? We got Kevin Stenlund out right now on allcitynetwork.com. Is there anything else you're working on right now on this Utah Hockey Club?
Yeah, a popular feature that I've done in the past. I'm going to do a mailbag. So if readers want to ask questions about the team, I'm going to give them the option of sending me a question, and they'll, as I always do, and sometimes I feel like I'm insane because sometimes they get 100 long, I will answer every question in the mailbag.
You are
Look for
insane.
That soon. Yeah, I probably am.
You are. That's unequivocal. Unequivocal? I don't write. So make sure you follow all of Craig's written content at allcitynetwork.com. Follow him if you want to see what's going on with this team or around the National Hockey League. And you can follow him at Craig S. Morgan. Follow our friend Belle at Belle Fraser 1 on X. Follow me at S. Peters Hockey. Follow the show at all_Utah Hockey. Make sure you please subscribe to our YouTube channel at All Utah Hockey to make sure you don't miss any of the videos we put out. It's not just our live shows. We do put out other content. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at All Utah Hockey. Listen to us wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you subscribe. Give us a 5-star review. For Craig Morgan, Belle Fraser, and Emma, the magic behind the Mac, I'm Petey, and we'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to discuss tonight's game against Carolina Hurricanes, and we might be able to actually throw in a special guest.
We are actually. Bashir will join us. Yeah, I just talked to him. We're going to talk about Ovi's quest to become the all-time leading goal scorer, which for a little bit there, Petey, we were thinking, is this going to happen? Is he at the end of his line? Nope, he's not. He's found a new Nick Backstrom to get him the puck, a guy familiar to us. So we'll talk about that on Thursday's show.
And they will be invading the Delta Center next Monday. So it's very important. Good timing to talk about Ovechkin as he comes into Salt Lake City to play in the Delta Center next Monday against the Utah Hockey Club. For Craig, Emma, Belle, I'm Petey, and we'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.